Looks like it.
Nope.
I'm probably going to have to.
Hey, everybody. This is Paul Romero here with the Wholesale Real Estate Investing Show, number 264 by SAHA on this negotiation new op day, June 13th, 2016. And it's going to be a really cool day here today. Phoenix is a hot, beautiful, sunny day, I'm sure. Actually, it's not too hot, not like it was a couple weeks ago, man. Hitting in the high teens, 100 and teens, and yeah, it gets up there. So I'm hanging out from Phoenix, and we have one of our top star noodlers here with us today, Lisa. Say hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Oh, like if we're going to throw something else out there, I could sneak in a bite of breakfast. So anyway, guys, you know, new op day, as you know, is the How to Win Friends and Influence People, the pretty much how to negotiate sellers, buyers, contractors, anybody you need to negotiate. Here it is right here. This is how you do it. So that's why on new op days every week or every session, we are studying each chapter of this book. And right now we're up to chapter 7 in part 3. And just a reminder to everybody what part 3 is, because why would this be something that would relate to wholesale real estate? Part 3 is how to win people to your way of thinking. Think that might come in handy when you're trying to negotiate with a seller? If you could win them over into your way of thinking, isn't that the primary objective? They have their way of thinking about their property, and you have your way of thinking about their property. So winning them over into that would be a pretty good idea, wouldn't it? So chapter 7 here is all about how to get cooperation. And have you ever noticed that when you try to push your ideas onto someone else, that the harder you push, the more resistance you get? It just ingrains, you know, if they have a different idea and you're trying to push your idea on there, the harder you push, just the deeper, the stronger their foothold gets to hold on to their idea, and the stronger their rejection becomes against yours. This chapter is really all about suggesting ideas to others in a way for them to create your idea in their head on their own. So it's not about pushing your idea on to somebody, it's just about making suggestion, giving some idea, putting some thought, planting some seeds into their head that's going to lead them into actually formulating your idea on their own, in their own head, thereby making it their own idea, not yours. And hey, isn't your own idea the greatest idea ever? Well, their own idea is their greatest idea ever as well, too. So, let's see, feel is yours. They have, yeah, they're, like I said, they're going to have far greater faith in their own idea than they will, you know, than they're ever going to have in yours, no matter how awesome your idea is. So what we love about this book is the stories, obviously. Everything that he goes through in here is the stories. And before I get into this first one, where he talks about a discouraged and disorganized auto sales team and how he flips that around, did you have any comments you wanted to throw in there on that thought, Lisa, about the objection of other people and how they just will grab hold of, you know, their position if you push on them?
Well, yeah, I mean, we see that all the time in wholesaling. You really need to be able to embrace where they're at when you're beginning your negotiation. People are often in a distressed situation. So I think that adds to, I think normally people are going to be kind of attached to their position in the first place. When someone is under duress, that can be even more so. So taking that into consideration, you definitely want to guide them to come to the conclusion versus try to force them into a situation where they feel like they're being told what's the best for them, and they don't agree with it.
Yeah, because that's exactly it right there. Because they don't want, when, you know, if you're in a situation where, you know, a high stress situation, there's a lot going on, you got pressure on you, you've got decisions that you have to make that you don't want to make, and
right,
yeah, and somebody throws, you know, hey, here's what you need to do at you, you know, your first instinct is, you know, forget you. What do you know? You don't know. You don't know. You don't know half of what's going on in my life, right? You don't know shit about me. How do you know what?
exactly.
You know. So with that,
exactly. And we're strangers. We're strangers coming into a distressed situation, going, well, here's what I think you need to do, with no prior relationship and no trust built for them to believe that we know what we're talking about.
exactly, and as I just talked about in our previous network marketing hangout, there's a big thing there, because people in today's world are, today's world especially, they are super skeptical and cynical about everything. I mean, anything,
Yes.
everything. I mean, it's unfortunately, I mean, it's just been ingrained into us over the centuries, and especially nowadays. I mean, the media pounds everything upon you that you should be scared of everything. Everything's a scam. Oh my God, you can't leave the house. You might get bit by a mosquito and die. You know, I mean, all these things, you know.
Yes.
So
yeah,
people's first instinct, their very first instinct, is always going to be to to object and reject whatever the hell it is that you have. You know, whatever it is that you have to say, and you got to understand that going in. That's, you know,
absolutely.
they might not even realize that they're doing it. Okay, they probably don't even realize that they're doing it, but their mind is taking them instantaneously to, you know, battle stations. Woo, danger, danger. You know, on guard.
Yes.
And that's sort of how we, in sales. And I'm bringing in, you know, Dan Kennedy on this. In sales, to make a sale, the 5 steps basically are: you want to introduce, you know, what the problem is, kind of a thing. Introduce the pain of the other person, and then, this is funny what he says, you want to introduce that pain, and then you want to aggravate it. You want to really get them pissed off about it,
yeah.
right? You want to take them right to the brink. But then what I was just noticing on the other, on the network marketing thing that I was looking at, the Don Fala Own Your Life book, he's got a statement in there when he's introducing a new prospect where he totally disarms that, and with 7 little words, or 6 words. You know, I can see you have your doubts. Boom, right there. All of a sudden, they're all guns are loaded. They're ready to start firing out their nose because, you know, they don't trust you and believe you. But now, as soon as you say, I can see you have your doubts, now all of a sudden they're like, oh, good, this guy sees it my way. All right, he's not such an idiot after all. He's on, you know what I mean? That is such a disarming statement. I can see you have your doubts. And then he goes into over there, obviously he goes into, you know, I just want you to understand that if you say yes to this, so not only does he disarm the whole situation, now he turns around and immediately, instead of, you know, them getting out that first no, now he's getting out the first yes. And he's implanting a seed into their head. If I say yes to this, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. There's such an awesome thing there. I didn't even realize I was going to combine those 3 things into this piece. That's not where I was going, but that's just how these masterminds work. You know, 3 ideas from different areas, and more interesting things come up. That's awesome. So the first story that I was going to get to in here, he talks about this disgruntled and discouraged organization of auto salesmen. And the cool thing is, he says he calls a meeting into place, right? And where's that? So he calls a meeting of all the salespeople, and you know, they're disorganized, they're discouraged, the sales are down, and all that stuff. And he turns to his group of salespeople and he says, you know, I would like you to tell me exactly what you expect from me, from us, the company. And so, you know, they as they talked, he wrote all their ideas down on this blackboard. And then so he's got this whole list of ideas that they expect from them and the company and all that, whatever they are. And then he turns around and he says, okay, I'll give you all these qualities that you expect of me. Now, what I want you to tell me is, what do I have the right to expect from you? And they turn around and just really quickly, I mean, boom, start rattling off things like, loyalty, honesty, initiative, optimism, teamwork, 8 hours a day of enthusiastic work, all of these things. And because it's their idea, he implanted in there, hey, so, I'll give you whatever you want. What can I expect from you? And they start telling him exactly what he can expect from them. And sure enough, long as he lives up to his end of the bargain, they're breaking their backs to do everything that they said they were going to do. It's awesome. It's a pretty cool story. The next one, he talks about a guy who basically failed 150 times trying to make a sale to a textile manufacturer on some drawings. And in here he talks about the fact that, he basically would come to this guy every week and say, hey, would you take a look at these drawings? What do you think? And every time the guy would take, he'd look at his sketches on. He never turned down his appointment. Guy took his appointment every time, brought in his drawings, said, here you go. What do you think? And the guy would look them over very carefully and say, no, Wesson, I don't think we're going to get together today. Like, pretty polite rejection, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, 150 times in a row, same thing over and over and over again. So he started like, maybe I'm in some kind of a rut, right? So he turns around and starts doing some research and whatnot, and he comes back with a new approach. And he comes back, with a half a dozen unfinished sketches under his arm. And he goes over to his office and he says, hey, you know what? Could you do me a favor? He says, just a heads up, could you do me a favor? Would you please take a look at these uncompleted sketches and tell me how we could finish them up in a way that you could use them? The guy looks at the sketches for a little bit and he says, you know what? Leave these with me for a few days, Wesson, and then come back and let me see. And so he leaves and he comes back 3 days later. And the guy, sure enough, he's, tells him exactly what he wants on these sketches. He takes them back to his office. He gets them done exactly the way the buyer wants them done. And boom, buyer takes them. Buyer buys them. And next thing you know, this guy's like his top producer. He's doing his sketches month after month.
Nice.
I just love the way these stories wrap around. They're so cool. What's the next one? How much time we got here? 9:43. Cool. The next one is how to win your vacation choice over your wife's, or your
tricky.
He talks about how he'd always wanted to take a vacation, and this is him personally. I think he always talks about wanting. No, it's not. It's somebody else. That's right. This guy always talks about how he wanted to take this vacation, to see all of the historic sites of the battlefield of the Gettysburg, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, all of the Eastern, historical sites and all of that. And then he says in March, his wife says, I have great ideas for our summer vacation. We're going to tour the Western states, and we're going to see, New Mexico and Arizona and California and Nevada and all these Western sites, right? And so he thinks to himself, and he realizes that his daughter just finishes this course in U.S. history in junior high school, and she had become very interested in the events that shaped our country. So he goes to the daughter, expresses, hey, here's we have a couple of vacation options. I see, you're in the history thing. What do you think you would like to do? And of course, at the dinner table, the daughter had gone to mom and said, I'm so interested in history, I'd like to see this stuff. And the next thing you know, at the dinner table, the mom says, well, hey, listen, if we can all agree on taking this Eastern vacation and seeing all these historical sites, that'll be our vacation. Oh, you know what? Hey, that sounds like a great idea, honey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, finding common ground, right? That's a strategy that we use.
Yeah, exactly. Finding common ground, and like I said, the principle of this chapter, you know, the basic, the bottom line point of what they're trying to get across here is try on. Oh, I skipped a page. Is to let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers, and so
Yes.
if you can get them to think, if you can get a seller in wholesale real estate to think that, you know, the idea of selling their house, you know, quickly, or selling you their house for this low price, whatever. If you can get them kind of thinking that that's their idea, they're all on it. You're locked
Yeah,
out. That's a done deal right there if you can do that. So
absolutely.
how can we do that though? That's a good question. I didn't think that far in advance.
Well, so taking the story that you just shared, one of the ways to do that is to, like we said, create some common ground. Sometimes it's about creating a common enemy. And we've talked about this before, where, you know, and this also goes to aggravating the pain point, like you spoke about a few minutes ago. You know, you bring up the fact that there's this situation that's happening to the person that is putting them in a position where we understand that selling is likely their very best option at this point. They may not have come to that conclusion yet, but if we can bring their attention to that common enemy, this other entity or this situation over here is what's causing you to potentially lose your property.
Right.
Instead of losing your property.
The bank's foreclosing on you.
Exactly.
And then, oh, well, it's not my fault, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm sure it's not. Yeah, the bank, are you kidding me? They got such screwed up systems that people can't figure things out. It's not your fault.
Exactly. And you put the power in their hands. You agree with them that this is a common enemy, that this is, you know, they're wrong for wanting to do that, but they have the power to make a choice. Why choose to allow them to take the property when you can choose to sell the property to us? It screws over the enemy, but not only that, it gives them the power of a choice to make and doing something that's going to, in the long run, save them additional pain down the line. No foreclosure on your credit, walk away with some money in your pocket, you know, these things. But in order to get them to see it from that perspective, you know, you've got to figure out what that common ground is first.
How about turning the tide on the enemy, like you said, by saying something like, the bank's not going to lose in this situation. I mean, they're either going to get your house or they're going to get their money, one of the two. They're going to win regardless. You don't want them to win, do you?
Right.
Oh, no, them sons of bitches, I don't want them to win. All of a sudden,
Exactly.
now they're on your side. Now it's their idea. What can we do? How can we beat these sons of guns?
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I gotta write that down. So, Lisa, I want to thank you for joining. I know you said you needed to cut out a little early today. You got someplace you got to be in about 40 minutes. So thanks for coming out here today. I really appreciate you being on the show. I hope you enjoyed and had some good stuff out of this. I'd like to invite you back. Like I said, hey, be here any and every new op day that you want to study these negotiation tactics. You've got a great insight to this stuff that I think people could get some good stuff out of.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for having me, and I will certainly be back.
All righty. I'm going to finish off with a couple more stories here.
All right.
So the next story is about Colonel Edward M. House's enormous influence over President Woodrow Wilson in the White House. President, mind you. But this guy he's a lowly colonel. He's not even a general. How does he have so much influence over the president? Well, it's very simply. He says that, where is it? He said he knew for House himself. He said, after I got to know the president, I learned the best way to convert him to an idea was to plant it in his mind casually, but so as to interest him in it. so as to get him thinking about it on his own account. He said the first time that this worked was an accident. He said he was he had gone to the White House. He had visited him at the White House and urged a policy on him, which he appeared to disapprove. But several days later at a dinner table, he says he was amazed to hear President Woodrow Wilson, tout my own suggestion as his idea. And, he said, it says in here, did House interrupt him and say, hey, that's not your idea, that's mine? Heck no. Why? Because, House didn't care about the credit. He wanted the results. So if it was beneficial to let President Wilson think that this was his own idea that House had planted into his mind, let him go ahead and think that. In fact, he even took it to the next level, and he gave Wilson public credit for coming up with these ideas. He totally gave away the credit on these ideas. If you're not selfish about the credit, give away the idea and make things happen. The next one, he talks about how he chose, excuse me, how he chose his fishing vacation lodge. This is the one that's actually Dale Carnegie talking here. And so he, where's it at here? What did he, oh, okay. He says he wrote the tourist bureau for information. And evidently his name and address was put on a mailing list because he was wanting to go on a fishing trip up in Canada, in the province of New Brunswick. So he had wrote the visitors bureau, the visitor center, the visitor bureau up there, and they said, oh, okay, hey, here's a guy who wants to come fishing here, wants information. Let's put his name out to all of the people, I don't know, in the Chamber of Commerce or whatever that have their fishing businesses registered with us or whatnot. So he starts getting a flood of information, pamphlets and booklets and letters and all this stuff about people telling him, all the great things about about their camps and their guides and all of this stuff. But one camp owner did something a little bit differently. All he sent him was the names and telephone numbers of several people in the area where he's from in New York who had stayed at his camp. Not saying anything good or bad himself. And he invites him to call these people and discover for himself what his camp had to offer. Just so happened he happened to know one of the names on the list, picked up the phone, called this guy. He took him all about it. He told him all about his experience and how great the camp was and the guides and all of this stuff. And he turned around and wired in his travel dates the next day. Everybody, he got stuff from a number of different fishing camps. He could have picked any one of them, but they were all doing the same thing. Here's us. Here's who we are. This is why we're great. This is why you should come with us. Yada, yada, yada. And this guy says, hey, here's some people that have been at our place. Give them a call. See what they think. See what you think. If you like us, give us a call. Right? No pressure. Nice and easy. He goes and calls somebody, and he talks himself into the fact that this is the place that I want to go to. He didn't have to get sold. That guy didn't sell him on anything. He said, the others have been trying to sell me on their service, but one let me sell myself. And that organization won. 25 centuries ago, Lao Tse, I think that's how you do it. I'm not quite, Lao Tse, Laozi, I don't know. A Chinese sage. Okay, that's Chinese. I don't speak Chinese, so you have to give me a break on that one. But Lao Tse, a Chinese sage, said some things that readers of this book might use today. What he wrote, what he said, this is pretty cool. This is where I got the title for today's show. The reason why rivers and seas receive homage of 100 mountain streams is that they keep below them. Thus, they are able to reign over all the mountain streams. So the sage, wishing to be above men, putteth himself below them. Wishing to be before them, he putteth them himself behind them. Thus, though his place above men, they do not feel his weight, though his place before them, they do not count it an injury. So this is pretty good stuff, see? When you try to overpower the other person, you become invisible. When you take this place beneath them and let them overpower you, now they can recognize you for your contribution to their strength. It's a powerful, little sentence there. In fact, I'm going to read it again. It says, the reason why rivers and seas receive the homage of 100 mountain streams is that they keep below them. Thus, they are able to reign over all the mountain streams. So the sage, wishing to be above men, putteth himself below them. Wishing to be before them, he putteth himself behind them. Thus, though his place be above men, they do not feel his weight. Though his place be before them, they do not count it an injury. Good stuff. You got to read that a few times. I just got a whole different little perspective on it when I read that the third time, fourth time, fifth time. I don't know how many times I read it, but I just got a whole different little perspective on that. That's one thing. I just want to point that out. Just in me reading that 3 times there, I got something the first time. The second time, it reinforced the first time, but the third time I read it, a different angle, a different, slightly different point of view came into focus for me there. Very interesting stuff. That's why books like this right here, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is not a book you just read once, put it up on the shelf, and then 20 years later when somebody asks you about it, you go, oh yeah, I read that book once. It's kind of like eating. You know, you got to eat every day. You got to feed your mind every day, right? This is a study book. This is a guide to human interaction, a guide to successful human interaction. You read this book today, put it on the shelf. You come back next year. Hopefully you've read maybe at least one other book in between. Maybe you read a couple of books in between, whatever the case is, right? But hopefully, yes, you should be reading some other books. But when you come back and take this book off the shelf next year, you're not the same person you are today when you read it. You're a different person. You have a different point of view. You see things in a different way. And what you read in this book, the words that come out of this book, are going to hit you in a different way. You're going to see things in a different way. You're going to get different things out of it than you got last time. And that's going to happen over and over and over and over again. You could read this book once a year for the rest of your life, and every time you do, you're going to get something new out of it. That's how it works. That's the power of a mastermind. You're getting ideas from another source compiled on top of your own ideas, which then completely change the way you see and think about things. And then when you get new ideas, you see them in a completely different way. And that is the reason why we say the Napoleon Hill prayer every day. O universe, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom, with which to make better use of the riches given to me at birth, consisting of the power to control and direct my own mind. Yeah, that's the key right there. The power to control and direct all those gifts that were given to you at birth. They're all right in here. The power to control and direct your own mind to whatever end I might desire. Hey, everybody. Happy New Op Day. It's going to be a great session this next 5 days coming up. We got a lot of activity going on. I hope you got some really good stuff out of this. I hope that this stuff kind of sinks in with you a little bit when it comes to you out there dealing with sellers in situations where you're trying to buy their property from them. Think of a way to let your idea become their idea. Let them verbalize your idea to you, and they've sold themselves. You don't need to sell them. Makes your job a whole lot easier, puts ink on paper a whole lot quicker, and gets dollars in your pocket a whole lot faster and bigger. All right, everybody, make it a good one. We'll see